It is time for the Classic Game Club. You are welcome along. We are back for 1 week only. Maybe we'll do a few more of these, but certainly it's going to be... the reason why we're back is because this weekend it is Dublin versus Kerry in Thurles in the National League. It is a complete novelty because Dublin were training during COVID and have been pushed out of Croke Park or Parnell Park, who knows where they would have played their home game. And they've got to play this weekend in Thurles. But also, 20 years ago this year, Kerry played Dublin in Thurles twice. So today we are going through the drawn game for the Classic Game Club from 2001, Kerry against Dublin in an All-Ireland football quarter-final. It's Eoin here, it's Ger here. We've got Tommy on the line. Tommy, how are you?
Hey folks, how are we? How are we doing?
So as ever, we're going to go through the moments of the game. We're going to pick our secret man of the match, our sliding doors moments, and much, much more. Ger, your memories of this match? I presume this is before your broadcasting career. This is like
no? We'd obviously started in April 2002.
April 2,
You're right. 2002. You're right. So yeah, I was doing something else.
Do you remember watching this game?
I don't.
Right. Okay.
I don't actually. I have no strong specific recollection. That I was looking back at that 2001 championship. It was bananas. It was absolutely bananas. There was a Westmeath trilogy.
Yeah.
Meath scrape over them by a point in Leinster and then meet them again in an All-Ireland quarter-final, and it's a draw where Westmeath scored 3 first-half goals and Meath managed to get back and draw that game and then win the replay relatively comfortably. But there's brilliant post-match footage of Luke Dempsey and Sean Boylan doing a joint interview on the sideline with Dara as the sideline reporter, and the two of them were together and they're just having the Luke is completely drained and Boylan's kind of looking at him going, "Come on, it's okay, we'll all be okay." And then at the very end, he has a go at Brolly, and they cut back to Brolly, who's like a young man going, "I can't believe anybody takes anything I say seriously."
This was the quarterfinals, like this.
That same weekend, yeah.
Yeah, this is, and I think 3 of the quarterfinals that year had been repeat meetings. So Kerry Dublin was the only new one that hadn't already happened in the provincial championships.
Like heartbreaking. So I was. This is the first backdoor All Ireland.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Galway win it, but Roscommon had beaten Galway and won Connacht, and their reward is an All Ireland quarterfinal against Galway. You're like, oh my god. And likewise, the Derry team of Anthony Towell get knocked out in Ulster, and Tyrone win. I think Tyrone win the Ulster that year. Is that right?
In 2001,
sure.
I think you're right, actually.
I think Tyrone win it, and then they meet Derry in All-Ireland quarter-final. Like, oh, come on. This is all pre-Mickey Hart, because the next couple of years are really interesting. It's new manager. New manager wins All-Irelands for the next 3 years after this, I think.
And pushes the game forward, which we'll get to in a moment about the quality of this game. Maybe it's just the fact that these just aren't the 2 best teams in the country. Tommy, what do you remember about this? You've got a frozen Tommy Rooney. Maybe he just doesn't remember much. Maybe it's all about the Meath. Can you hear us, Tommy?
I think I'm just frozen.
Any memories from 2001 before you were watching it?
The first game I was ever in Croke Park was the following match, and it was Meath against Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final. So that's kind of my first real big memory of watching an inter-county game live. I don't remember a whole pile about the championship that year. I do know that I wasn't brought to the All-Ireland final, and that broke my heart. So, yeah, I kind of came on the premise that I do this Classic Game Club if we end up doing Meath and Kerry in the Classic Game Club. So I'm ready to go for that.
We will eventually get to it. It's just because of Kerry Dublin and Thurles this weekend. We've pushed this to the front of the queue, and then I guess it'll be worth all the pain of Kerry Meath doing that one. Just to add a bit of... Go on, Ger.
I think the Meath Kerry, the pain that you feel now should not be anything like the pain that Tommy feels, because that's the end of Meath. And there's great post-match stuff where McGuinness comes out afterwards and is like McDermott is like so the Meath crowd taunt Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final after Kerry come through this sequence of games, because Meath are like, ole, ole,
Boylan was fuming.
At the end
they've all talked about that.
Tommy was there, and Meath,
I didn't know
Meath are shamed by this in a weird way, and then obviously get hockeyed in the All-Ireland final.
Like I've actually watched that Meath Kerry game, and we'll come to it at some stage, but the quality isn't amazing in that game as well. It wasn't like I remembered it.
Well, we'll have that quality conversation. These matches, this championship, is amazing because it turns out anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah.
It's like a roulette wheel, and you don't know where it's going to land. And it could land on Roscommon, it could land on Tyrone, it could land on Armagh, it could land on Westmeath, and any of those teams could have beaten the ultimate All-Ireland champions or the ultimate All-Ireland finalists or any of these two teams, and that is glorious.
Yeah, the teams are human. I think that's the big thing about this, and we'll come to it a little later when it comes to some of Dublin's decision making on the field. But like, they're human. 20 years on, these teams have hit a supernova level of decision making.
So just to add a bit of meat onto the bone of the context there, Kerry come into this game as Munster champions, as All-Ireland champions. Dublin kind of looking to get a second go at the All-Ireland team from '95, but it's quite a new team as well. It's about half and half really when you look at that team. The sides hadn't met in championship in 16 years before this game in Thurles in 2001, so there was massive anticipation going into it. The qualifiers were here, the quarterfinals were here. Croke Park still under redevelopment. Hogan Stand was only one tier high by early August of that year, so it was off to Thurles with this quarter-final, and the setting really is everything. Cars getting abandoned in all sorts of places, people just stopping and going in to watch the game in a pub, not bothering to go. We saw the scenes there at Thurles train station, which was clearly the way to go, and I'm sure that just the train tickets just sold out. Like, I was at this game and I just remember Thurles being crazy. There was this strange sort of jovial coming together of Kerry and Dublin fans beforehand. It was absolutely brilliant. Like, maybe Croke Park just isn't conducive to that happening because the Dublin fans have their sort of haunts and the Kerry fans have their haunts, and like the Gresham and maybe Jury's Hotel and those sort of places. Whereas in Thurles, everybody just came together outside Hayes' Hotel or inside Hayes' Hotel, and every second jersey was Kerry and Dublin. Everybody having to crack with one another. It was not partisan whatsoever. It was just this really joyful experience pre-game. Obviously within the game, once the ball is thrown in, the fans hate each other and they hate the opposition teams, but that was just for the 70 minutes of the game. Beforehand and afterwards, it was this brilliant coming together of two supporters who were both kind of like fish out of water. I know Kerry had way more experience playing in Thurles, but Dublin people in particular coming to Thurles was like, wow, this is like the Algarve.
So the Dublin fans, the Dublin supporters who've travelled such a long way today, says Ger Canning in the middle of the game. Just a quick Google Maps there. Dublin to Thurles, 1 hour and 44 minutes. Tralee to Thurles, 2 hours and 16 minutes. I'm like, what? It's actually closer for most of the Dublin fans than it would be for the ones, and that's just from Tralee. What about if they're coming from the south of Kerry? Like, what about if you're coming from Dingle? I mean,
what if you come from Valencia and you've got to, get a boat over to the other?
You have to row over.
You know?
I like this. I mean, it is remarkable that the Dubs went to Thurles twice, and nobody thought this is brilliant. Let's do this. Let's make them always travel. It's amazing that this didn't become a thing afterwards.
Yeah, like, because you're getting 50,000 at the gate anyway. Like, in fairness, Kerry Dublin in the quarterfinal is 82,000. I'm sure that's what it was in 09. But like, just for the, is it worth it? Like, I mean,
yes.
To lose that 30,000, I think so. I think what you're getting are these unbelievable moments immediately. Like, even in the league, I think that if there is, I mean, you're not going to have a situation every year where Dublin are going to lose home advantage. But if there was a packed crowd in Thurles this Sunday, that would be incredible. And I know it's only there. We're going to be watching it in a vacuous place, and it's not going to be great. But I think it's definitely something to look at for the future, because the atmosphere and the setting
and the Gaelic grounds, sticking the Gaelic grounds, sticking Páirc Uí Chaoimh, like, let's not have it be Dublin playing every knockout championship game. The Super 8s games being mandated to be in Croke Park as opposed to being neutral. They could easily have played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. The Super 8s, look, let's not get into it.
Let's go through.
Do you remember a huge amount from actually being there? Like, you're what, 7 or 8 years old in 2001?
I remember Morris's kick. Like, that is something that is just imprinted in your brain, because you're like, wow, we're losing this game. I don't remember anything about the game other than that, the fact that Kerry were about to lose and all of a sudden they weren't about to lose. And I remember watching it on the Sunday game that night almost more clearly than the kick itself, but just realising at this moment that this was instantly iconic. Now, I do think, like, there's sections of my childhood. I was opposite. I wasn't right behind him. I was at the opposite side, which I don't know the names of the stands in Thurles other than the Killinan end, but the one at the stand along the side opposite Morris Fitz. So I didn't have a brilliant, the best view like the camera did. But like, all these things kind of get meshed together in your childhood, where there was a thing that RTE did a couple of years afterwards where they were picking the greatest GEA moment of all time. And I know that kick from Maurice Fitz comes second after Michael Donlan's goal. There was uproar in Kerry over that Maurice Fitz's kick didn't win. So all these things kind of come together and you're like, how much of my information actually came from experiencing that live versus how much did it actually come from watching it back afterwards again and again? I think it's probably more the latter. But we shouldn't get into this. There's plenty of moments beside that. But before that, I just want to go through the teams this day. So Kerry started with a team. Declan O'Keefe in goals. Mossy Lyons, Seamus Moynihan, Mike McCarthy as their full back line. Tomas O'Shea, Eamon Fitzmaurice and Tom O'Sullivan was the half-backs. Darragh O'Shea and Donald Daly in midfield. Aidan McArrold, Owen Brosnan and Noel Kennelly was the half-forward line with Mike Frank Russell, Darragh O'Cneda and Johnny Crowley in their full forward line. Maurice Fitzgerald started on the bench. For Dublin then it was Davy Byrne in goals. They did not pick Stephen Cluxton, even though he was very much a Dublin senior by this stage. Davy Byrne had won the jersey back, I think is how Ger Canning puts it in commentary. Paddy Christie, Shane Ryan, Coleman Goggins was the full back line. Paul Curran, Johnny McGee, Patter Andrews in the half backs. Darren Homan and Kieran Whelan in midfield. The most brutish midfield of all time, possibly. Enda Sheehy, Jason Sherlock, Collie Moran, the half forwards, and then Declan Darcy, Ian Robertson, Desi Farrell in the full forward line. You'd the likes of Jim Gavin on the bench, you'd Vinnie Murphy on the bench, and the referee, who we'll come to in a while, is Mick Curley, a fella from Galway who was, according to the commentary, a Garda superintendent. So there's a great line where Johnny Crowley is raging about a free, and he goes up to the ref and he's like, "Screw you, referee!" And then Ger Canning is like, "Of course, Johnny Crowley is a referee is a Garda in Bishopstown. Mick Curley is superintendent in the Gardaí," and it's like, this guy is may have done himself out of a promotion down the line. But those were the teams which sets the scene for the moments of the match. And I just want to kick this off, lads, with the early first half, if we can use that as a moment, because this was just an exhibition of terrible, terrible, terrible football. And it's hard to know where to even point the finger of blame. Was it just everybody was really nervous and everybody was unbelievably wired? That kicks were going everywhere, and Dublin's goal kicking at the start was just awful, even though they had a lot of really good opportunities.
Jared, was this a standard of football in 2001? Was this what was to be expected? Because when I look back, clouded with the last 10 years of Dublin and Donegal and Kerry and Mayo and the high levels of retaining possession, and even at club level this has seeped in that you don't give the ball away. You bring the ball in a horseshoe. If you're not in the right shooting position, you come back to your quarterback at the 45 and you work it right, you work it left, and you get to the shooting position. Anyone was shooting. Everyone was shooting. Collie Moran was skying balls falling over on his left. Darren Homan was hoofing ball up into the air. They'd be crucified if they did that in that current.
They would be crucified if they did it in the current team. But you've got to remember, this is the back door is just in. The evolution of the game is just beginning to seep in. That there's no defensive structure. There's no discernible defensive structure on display from either team. And if you look at the brain power of the people who are on the field and on the bench, and you think about the impact that they've had on the game in terms of coaching and management, Fitzmaurice is there at centre-back, and he's doing stuff that he would never accept his own teammates doing. Jim Gavin can't get in this team. Jason Sherlock, you can actually see Sherlock coming out and trying to be a bit of a point guard, but not enough of his teammates are on the same wavelength as he is, trying to implement some of the basketball stuff. Him and Desi are on the same wavelength, and after that, in terms of forwards, not the rest of them really. But I don't see this as bad. I see this as highly enjoyable, like a street brawl. It's a street brawl that you've stumbled upon on a YouTube wormhole, and you're not turning it off, and you're not sitting there going, well, I'm docking points because, he's got his jaw out ready to get thumped, or that's too much of a haymaker and he's lost control of it. I'm sitting there intrigued by the street brawl. It's like football you'd find on the dark web with the first 7 minutes of this game. It's
incredible, I agree.
But Dublin were brilliant. They just couldn't score.
Yeah, that was it.
They absolutely killed Kerry at various stages in this game, and that kind of is a precursor to the end of the game, which this game makes no sense. It's bonkers. It's completely wild. Both teams afterwards must have been like, oh, I can't believe we left that behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. So those early exchanges, as you say, Dublin are playing really good football, but they just can't kick the ball over the bar. Like Desi Farrell's inside in full forward, he's getting angry at his teammates for some wayward kicking in. You've got Seamus Moynihan, who's playing a blinder, but as you say, it's very much hit and hope stuff, and there's a little bit of luck that comes with a bit of the defending on both sides. But by and large, Kerry's backs maybe are on top in certain areas. Darragh O'Shea is killing Dublin in midfield at the start, and then Kerry get an early goal, where Davy Byrne doesn't cover himself in glory too much, but Darragh O'Shea does a brilliant job of bringing McGarrels in, and he finishes to the back of the net. And that's the scene set for the start of the game. Dublin wasteful, Kerry get the goal, they're in the lead. But it's the second quarter of the game, which is extraordinary. Now, I'm not sure, Jared, you want to take us through these, but there are two of the worst misses in front of goal I think I've ever seen. Tommy, I'm not sure if you agree, but I can't remember two in such proximity. We've got Collie Moran and we've got Desi Farrell.
Collie Moran is on the verge of scoring the greatest GAA goal of all time. He picks the ball up between his own 45 and the 65 and is kind of, you can see the criticism already mounting from the commentators, like, oh, there's no dubs in front of him. Oh, what's he going to do with this? There's nowhere for it to go. Kind of like and maybe they were trying some kind of ad hoc, weird defensive system, and it obviously didn't work. And he looks up and there's a bit of daylight. And the injection of pace that Collie Moran has is like one of the biggest injections of pace you're ever going to see in GAA. He kind of loses control of the ball at one point. The solo, which was very fluid, it kind of arcs up in the air. And at that point, another Kerry defender comes in and he used that to swivel past him. And all of a sudden, he's kind of like 35 metres from goal, having made 60 metres. And then there's a 1-2 on if he looks up. Got to beat a defender first, beats the defender, and there's a 1-2 on with Desi. And Desi's pass is across the 6-yard box, essentially, the large part, a small parallelogram. But it's just a bit in front of him. Like, it's just half a foot wrong. And instead of being able to just palm it to the net,
he's got to catch it.
He has a decision to make to either bend down and catch it, which would mean having to bounce it, because there's a defender coming over across, one of the O'Sheas, I think, and that would have been just sticking in the back of the net. But he doesn't do that. He reaches out with his left foot. Obviously, he is left-footed, but his left foot is going the wrong way, and it's like
it's agonising.
Slow motion, but like a bullet wide past, just like the umpire nearly has to duck. An open goal. But the end of literally the greatest move you're ever going to see, where it's like, wow, look at this, the glorious sunshine. It's Dublin versus Kerry. His entire career is made in that moment. Like, afterwards, he dines out. He's at every road show that we've ever done, telling the story of the goal, like Laurie Sanchez or Norman Whiteside's.
Or Owen Mulligan. It's your Owen Mulligan moment. It would have been iconic.
As good as Owen Mulligan's goal, but like with teammates involved, like in a way, and so much distance made and so much pace. But you're just like, oh, Jesus.
Look, lads, what I don't understand is when that ball came across the square from Desi Farrell, why didn't Collie Moran just stop it with his right foot, do a little drag back like David Clifford, move it onto his left foot and curl it into the bottom corner? It just doesn't make sense. He just throws a lazy left foot at it.
Desi screws him over with the pass completely, I think. I think it's good that you mentioned that. But to make matters worse in this scenario, the camera then pans to the stands. And we've got our great leader, Bertie Ahern, with his head in his hands. And he's like, oh no, Collie Moran. Oh no, not Collie Moran. And what is the commentary line, Ger, at that moment?
The commentary line is, I hope Bertie made some money in the Galway races.
It's at this moment then that we start to really hear the volume pick up, not from the crowd, but from Tommy Carr and Paddy. And you can really hear Paddy through the 50,000 voices in the stadium. Just everybody's getting so much angry. This amazing event has just happened where surely you could never miss a worse opportunity than that. But the thing is, you absolutely could. Dublin only went and did it. Tommy, I'm not sure, do you want to take this one up? The Desi Farrell miss, which is as shocking, if not more shocking, than the Collie Moran miss.
Yeah, so it's a couple of minutes later. You know, Dublin had scored 3 points by this stage. I think Kerry were 1-4 up. We just got our Jim Gavin screen grab, so anyone watching back will go, oh, right, he's sitting there on the bench looking very forlornly on.
Shaved head.
Yeah. So by the time this happens, and this is 3 shots in a row, you know, Seamus Moynihan at this stage is playing outrageously well. He's like a wild goat fielding ball and driving out the field. We've already had a couple of glimpses of the midfield battle where Darragh O'Shea has fielded some brilliant balls and Darren Holman and Kieran Whelan are starting to come into the game. And the sequence of events is just mental. Kieran Whelan drives through, takes a brilliant shot, comes back off the post, falls to Declan Darcy, whose shot then is blocked and spins towards goal. Dessie Farrell gathers it. Dessie Farrell in the slow motion replay afterwards does so well. He anticipates where the ball is going. Reminds me a little bit of Ollie Murphy. Was maybe Dessie Farrell was a kind of Dublin version of Ollie Murphy. Is that what he was back in the 90s?
No.
Anyways, he gathers the ball and kind of gets by the keeper, off balance, shoots from 5 yards out.
To an open goal.
To an open goal. Smashes the crossbar. Like, Dublin's shooting efficiency, lads, the weekend was 85%. Sure, Colm Costello hit the post. Sure, you know, they had one wide, I think. I think the cornerback, Davy Byrne, took a mark and put it wide. Oof. That was 23 out of 27. By this stage, it's 3 out of 15 shots. Like, it's absolutely brutal. Like, it's just shocking. And it's like, but the thing is, the open goal isn't the problem. Dessie Farrell smashing the ball off the crossbar, off balance from 5 yards out, and all the Dubs around them feeling like they're never going to get a score in this game isn't the problem. Collie Moran missing pretty much an open goal with a attempt on a half volley that you might have seen in the World Cup the following year wasn't the issue. It was the shots from 45 yards and 50 yards. It was Collie Moran missing a free from 30 yards out right in the middle of the goals. They just couldn't get their act together. But maybe you're right. Maybe it was the absolute utter adrenaline because they had been playing so well up to this point.
It's amazing as well when Dessie Farrell misses that. He just drops to his knees straight away. He just can't believe it's after happening. And then
the head in the hands. It's that makes the whole thing because the miss happens so quickly that you're like, hang on, what happened there? It's off the crossbar. But it's actually it's his massive reaction to it going, I can't believe I just missed an open goal from 2 yards. I think it's 2, by the way.
Yeah.
I think 5 is being generous there, that it's like, how could you? Timo Werner would have struggled to hit the crossbar from there. And I think because he falls to the ground like he's been shot, like a golfer who misses a putt to win the Masters. The reaction is so wired and explosive that you're like, something amazing was just happened there. I just need to go back and look at that again. And indeed it was fairly amazing.
I love the commentary around this as well. Tony Davis is like, how in the name of God did he miss? And then Ger Canning says, let's not bring the Lord into this. I'm not sure if he's joking or not. Like, this is 2001, our RTE still the national bastions against blasphemy. Like, maybe he is joking, but it doesn't really sound like he is. Like, it's just Canning and Davis. What a combo.
Tony Davis is also silent for about a minute and a half afterwards, like stunned into absolute silence. Most co-coms at that stage are like elbowing the commentator. Let me tell you exactly what just happened here. But he's like, I can't explain this. It's chaos.
I think Davis is like, I don't know, either dropped his mic for the whole thing and is like fist bumping throughout the whole thing because you just don't hear him throughout the majority of like the really important moments in the game. Like,
for some reason, Tony Davis makes sense to me being on co-coms back then. Was he always on co-coms? Was he the voice of Gaelic football around those years? Or did he appear on that Gaelic game, PlayStation game?
I think. Oh, I don't know. I didn't have it.
I don't know.
I think like it's quite new. That was one of the things that cropped up from the games that we were doing in the 90s, that there was no co-com for most of them. Like, it's a very new phenomenon, and so therefore the commentators, I presume, are still like, this is never going to last. What are they doing here? Should be one voice calling this? We all know that's the way things...
Let's just speed this up a little bit because we're almost at the end of the first half. You mentioned there Dublin's horrific shot accuracy. Like, there is a moment after that where Declan Darcy... like, he should be scoring. He could score from double the distance usually, and from the distance he lets an effort into the arms of Declan O'Keefe. This is the sort of thing we're seeing from Dublin, and it is not hyperbole to suggest that the shooting performance from Dublin in the first half is astonishing. Like,
18 shots, 3 scores.
It's worth reiterating.
16% shooting accuracy.
Like, that is the forgotten storyline of this game, 2001. The inefficiency from the Dublin forwards, which isn't just, which isn't like a lack of, intuition or expertise when it comes to the coaching. It is just this crumbling in certain moments, or it's just freak incidents. And half-time anyway, Kerry get in 5 points up. After half-time, Kerry actually continue. I mean, Johnny Crowley starts to lead the way here. It's 110 to 5 points at one point in the second half. It's an 8-point lead. The scores change every so often after that, but an 8-point lead is where we get to. And I know you want to talk about Johnny Crowley, Ger, because this guy this season was a phenomenon. Absolutely sensational.
Like, completely flawless in the entire game up until stoppage time at the end of the match. Like, unmarkable. And Tony Davis obviously clearly loves him because he's like, that was just brute strength at one point. He's got it all. He's the best forward in the country at the moment. And obviously he was keeping Morris Fitz out of the team, you know? Like, oh, really cute. There's like there's a blatant dive in the first half that is like, you know, wouldn't have been out of place in the World Cup, as they would tend to say if somebody ever scores a good penalty. Kerry were good at the L dives. Owen, I always thought this was a more recent cynical phenomenon, but it turns out they were like the old theatrical arms up and a nice little tug of the jersey here and there. But notwithstanding that, he could kick off both points. He's your Ollie Murphy. He's your Ollie Murphy if you're looking for a comparison here. But I would say actually even better than Ollie Murphy.
Yeah, like I mean, it was just the archetype of corner forwards that Kerry had produced. Johnny Crowley fit that. Mike Frank Russell fit that. Diminutive, fast. And maybe a little bit of cuteness there as well. It's interesting that you bring up the diving. I think that brings us on nicely to one of the most memorable moments from the game, which is Johnny Crowley. It looked like he was going to burn his man at one point, and then all of a sudden there's a coming together of legs, and on first look it looks as if he's been taken out of it. On second look it looks like Johnny Crowley makes the most of it. But it is at this moment that Tommy Carr completely loses his head. As I say, we could hear him over 50,000 people. This is him being told to go away. I think we've got another shot here of Tommy Carr going up to Curly, the referee. We'll get this in just a sec. There he is, that close to the referee, screaming in his face. He burst his own eardrum, I would suspect, Tommy Carr.
That's a matter of inches, like less than 6 inches.
Oh, like it's just, and what you've got is this group of Dublin players who are pretty old school and are hard men. They're actually rushing towards their manager to
Johnny
say,
McGee.
Calm down. Yeah, Johnny McGee's like, calm down, Tom. Like, I mean,
pushing him away like, twice. He goes back again after he's gone essentially to butt heads. Like, imagine if he'd headbutted him. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility.
The Garda, the superintendent of the Garda.
But then the linesman comes over and he just gets fecked out of it.
Yeah, the linesman, yeah. The Carr pushes the linesman then. That's the forgotten thing. And like, he does get a ban for the second game as well, which is the thing. Like, that's how bad it was. In 2001...
I wasn't sure.
He was so angry that they actually gave him a ban in 2001.
Was it a one-game ban?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Obviously, they only had one more game in that championship. But Johnny Crowley sparks that. Like, it's... Kerry are just constantly kicking the ball in long at this point. There's one hilarious moment where Donald Daly gets the ball in midfield and he turns around and he just hand passes it back to, I don't know, is it Mike McCarthy or McCarroll or somebody who's standing behind him. And you can hear Paddy O'Shea eviscerate him. I think you can actually hear his arms flailing. And it's just at that moment you think to yourself, what would Paddy have thought over the last 7 or 8 years about the lateral hand passing in GAA? I'd say he would be spinning in his grave to think about what has actually been happening with lateral hand passing recently. Just one small hand pass in the wrong direction, he lost the plot completely with Donald Daly. Let the ball in long, I don't care if it's aimless, just keep kicking the ball. And I guess it was working to a certain point.
But it was a brilliant hand pass. If you go back and watch it, like the hand pass, they win a free off it. Like, it was the right thing to do. It was a recycle of possession, but not for him. Sorry, Tommy Carr got a one-match ban for that, which was subsequently extended to a 12-week ban, or 24-week ban. Sorry.
The long passing that you're talking about, obviously with the advanced mark that's been brought in, we're seeing a wee bit more of long kicking at the minute. Whether or not the advanced mark is the right thing to do, actually on that there could have been about 9 bloody marks in that game, and it would have been a disaster because none of them would have gone over the bar. But the long kicking, it's very noticeable in the Meath Kerry game when we come to it as well. Meath did the exact same thing. They were bombing ball after ball in on top of Graham Gardy and Ollie Murphy. And Seamus Moynihan kept coming out with the ball. I think there was 7 or 8 in the first half of that Meath Kerry game. And it's the same here. It's just a bit mad. And like, obviously the quality of the individual players were much better. But like, the standard of the game is low level intermediate football. Like, the standard of the football being played. No, it's not. It's the decision making. It's the kicking, the wild kicking with like your body open a simple ball down the line, the body open and it's going out over the sideline. It's very jarring to watch it. It's madness.
Yeah, no, you are right in fairness, but I genuinely do think there is just like a breakdown in everybody's motor skills because everybody is so angry during this game. Like when Kieran Whelan kicks a massive point to bring Dublin back into it late in the second half. Like he miscontrols one solo by about 10 metres. Like it doesn't go into his chest. It's like way in front of him. Like people have just broken down. Their skills have deserted them in this like complete cauldron of emotion that is Semple Stadium on the day. It's really interesting. Like just on Moynihan that you mentioned him there, he was good against Meath, probably the only good Kerry player against Meath that day. But I think after watching games like this, you have to appreciate that he was just on a higher plane than everybody else in that Kerry team. And like maybe with the exception of Maurice Fitzgerald, who we'll get to in a while. But I think there's a case to be made that post the golden era, post the Mick O'Dwyer years, Seamus Moynihan is Kerry's greatest ever player. Like the consistency, the ability for him to read the ball was like nothing I've ever seen anyway. And there was just always these lines in commentary where it's like, oh, a miscontrolled pass from the opposition into the arms of Seamus Moynihan, which we don't actually get to appreciate. Every time a ball is miscontrolled, all of a sudden Moynihan's on the end of it. He could see the future, this man. And like, Ger, I think you were making the point last night that this is a man who maybe is a little bit before his time, that he could actually have been even better in a proper system.
Well, imagine if you had him now in any of the great inter-county teams that currently exist. Say he played in that Dublin team, and you could pick him at 3, you could pick him at 6, but he'd be scoring regularly because he'd be free to go forward. He'd also be that sweeper at the back because, you know, the Man United debate about whether or not Fred and McTominay can do the role of one man. Seamus Moynihan could be that player who would also be getting forward to score goals, I think, in these teams, to be the extra man, fisting it in at the far post, having made runs. Like, you know, if you stuck him in the Kerry team under Eamon Fitzmaurice, when they would have had a system that would have played to his strengths as well. Whereas here, it's like, we've got nobody who can play full back anymore. You need to go back there and you need to essentially be my coach on the field, my eyes and ears, and be the physical enforcer, and you need to win every high ball that comes in too. And occasionally, we'd like you to go forward, but not too far forward. There were definitely times when he was like making that run that I think would have opened up the game, and he stopped because he knew they didn't have the defensive structure. They definitely had the defenders. That Kerry defence was brilliant. Like as individuals, you know, Tom Sullivan is there, Tomas is there, Kirby comes off the bench. There's just
Fitzmaurice
and Moynihan. Yeah, like they're all stars. And yeah, you're right. There was just probably a complete lack of system. And Moynihan is the shepherd of the team, and
he never gives it away.
No,
he never gives the ball away.
Always did the right thing. We should move on to the Dublin comeback, and the Dublin comeback is as a result of Vinnie Murphy coming into proceedings. It is a massive substitution. Vinnie Murphy looks like the mountain during this game.
He does.
Like he is an absolute monster. We can see him challenging Tom Sullivan here immediately as he comes on and kind of nails him straight away. Tom Sullivan, who's not exactly the weakest man in the world, gets put in his place immediately by Vinnie Murphy, and he scores his goal.
In the face. Like, it's not just a shoulder, like he properly pokes him in the face after Tom Sullivan and himself give each other a shoulder too. Yeah, so the crowd is, you know, going wild and roaring as Vinny comes on and nails Tom a shoulder. O'Sullivan comes back and hits him a shoulder. Like, all right, fair play, Tom. Next thing, Vinny just goes, poof.
Yeah, like it's crazy how much of this game was based on aimless kicking. Vinnie Murphy looking like the most strong, brutish man of the lot, and yet he produced, other than Maurice Fitzgerald, the moment of greatest subtlety throughout the 70 minutes. His little side foot finish into the back of the net to bring Dublin right back into proceedings after he came off the bench. And you know, this is against his beloved Kerry, Gerard. This is Vinnie Murphy and Kerry had gone back a long way at this point. This was a little bit of a private story for him too.
So Vinnie Murphy was on the Dublin team, or thereabouts, was a sub on the team that won the All-Ireland in 95, and he was just cresting to his peak in 96, 97. Mickey Whelan came in and told them all that they were one of the worst teams ever to win an All-Ireland, and that they were going to do it better this time, and they were going to do it with a bit of flair. So I told them all, take your medals and put them in the bin. That's essentially what happened. I was like, I didn't know this. This is all in a piece that Vinnie Murphy did. And so he's at a loose end thinking, geez, what am I going to do with my life? And ends up moving to Kerry, plays football for Cairns Rallies for 3 years, but lines out for the Kerry Hurlers because there's a dispute between the Kerry hurling clubs and the county board, and somebody says, here, listen, can you come down and play for us? Scores 1-3 in a pre-season match against Cork and never pulls on the jersey again because he realises that from a personal perspective, he feels like he's cheapened the Kerry jersey and cheapened the Dublin jersey. And in retrospect, it was a mistake. So I know somewhere in my head I've seen a picture of him, but I couldn't find it last night on the internet to find Vinnie Murphy in a Kerry jersey. And then he moves back up to Dublin, plays good club football. Tommy Carr invites him back in to play the role of super sub at 30-31, and lo and behold, he plays the role perfectly.
Yeah, Will has been in touch to say he travelled with as a 17-year-old. It was immense, one of my best ever away trips. I often thought if Dublin had won that, we would have won more in the noughties. 2 awesome midfields on show that day. Vinnie Murphy had been playing his club football down in Kerry for a good while beforehand, and I think he talks about William Kirby actually and knowing him through his time intra-league playing with Cairns O'Rahilly's. It's something I had no idea of, that story of him playing for Kerry hurling until he mentioned it there. But he obviously found it within himself that he had a blue heart, and that was it. He was going to go back and play for Dublin. And his goal and the Holman goal, which puts Dublin in front, this brilliant fisted effort into the back of the net, those should have been the moments, as you say, Ger, the future roadshow moments, that Dublin finally beat Kerry, their first meeting in 16 years, and Dublin win on this occasion. Like that was the comeback complete. If it wasn't for Maurice Fitzgerald, it would have happened. And you wonder what might have happened next had they actually hung on in that situation. As Will said there, they often thought that was their moment in the early noughties.
So I don't think it is, because when you realise that what else is happening on Gaelic football fields around the country that summer is that these two teams are being left behind quite significantly by first Meath and then subsequently by Galway.
Well, then, yeah, the following years, Armagh are obviously tweaking things and Tyrone are coming.
Yeah, there's a revolution happening, and these two teams are still locked in the style that was the style of the 80s and the style of the 90s. And the style of the 90s hadn't been successful really for either of them until 97, obviously. But one last thing before we get to the Maurice Fitz is, like, all game, it did not look like there was significant weather at all. But at one moment, about 10 minutes ago, it's like Dublin playing against the breeze in this second half. It made I made no accommodation for it whatsoever until that moment where Maurice Fitz gets the ball.
Yes.
And it's like the wind is whistling across his jersey, and the jerseys are all too big. That's the other thing. The jerseys all make them look like they're intermediate players. That and the fact
Jason Sherlock. Joe's jersey is amazing.
Well, when they take the jerseys off, you realise that some of them do not have the same strength and conditioning approach as today's athletes do as well. It's fair to say that there was a lack of definition that, you know, would characterise me after lockdown. That's I was like, that's certainly.
When you go back to Vinnie Murphy's goal, Eoin, obviously Vinnie comes on, and as we said, the crowd get G'd up. Like, Kerry are winning by 7 points at that stage.
The last
10
cause.
minutes. There's 9 minutes to go. It's absolutely incredible. Like, it's not even that their game management is poor. They barely get a hand on the ball. And I actually think, you know, you mentioned Vinnie Murphy's goal, you mentioned Darren Holman's goal. The Kieran Whelan, Darragh O'Shea battle in this was fascinating throughout. And Whelan, I think like Darragh O'Shea, it's actually hard to say Whelan came on top, but Whelan was so important to that Dublin comeback. He scores a brilliant point on the right. He's a drive and run where he wins a free. That was actually one of my favourite things about that game. And then obviously at the very, very, very end, Darragh makes that monstrous fetch on Wayne McCarthy. Wayne McCarthy shot there. There's the image there. Wayne McCarthy, poor Wayne, had the chance to win the game. But one of the most jarring things that came with this was Vinnie Murphy's first touch, pretty much, is that lovely deft finish into the goal. Maurice Fitzgerald's first touch was that sideline, that unbelievable sideline. I think that was the first touch of the ball. Wayne McCarthy had 4 frees, and he just didn't strike them properly. Just
into
didn't
the
get
wind
them
as
off
well,
the ground.
and
Yeah, the wind was against him. That's fair.
It was never gonna get there. So Maurice Fitz comes off the bench, gets welcomed by a bunch of Dublin players in a pretty aggressive way. Johnny McGee, speaking about this years afterwards, said that the welcoming committee was probably the worst thing we did to welcome Maurice the way we did. Probably it was a bit naive on the part of a few of us. We were very young. The worst thing to do was to rile up Maurice Fitz coming in off the bench. Now, it wasn't just the players, of course, who were riling up Maurice Fitz. Once Davy Byrne kicks that ball out over the sideline, which, again, possibly should not have happened if they just won their own kick out. Maurice Fitz never would have got the ball in his hands. But anyway, it does go out over the line. Maurice Fitz gets the ball, the wind is blowing, and Tommy Carr standing beside him and edges closer and closer and closer to him, shouting at him, really, as Maurice Fitz goes to actually take the sideline. And we all know what happened, the beautiful arc from left to right and straight over the bar. to be honest with you, I don't believe anybody who says that they knew he was going to nail it. I think it's always a bit of a risk when a player's just come off the bench and it's his first kick. But such was his track record, such was what he'd shown in 1997. But still, 4 years previous, that he was going to nail this. And there's no better person you'd rather have
over the black spot.
Hand.
It literally ends
over the black spot.
Over the black spot. From like, and it's just this amazing golf shot that we take for granted. I think probably because we've seen it so much. But just go back and watch it again and see the wind whistling in the jersey. See the linesman stand right beside him, and the flag tilted, and everything is like there are a load of people around him, and he is completely immune to it. It's one of those moments where there is a master craftsman at work who nothing you say or do is going to be able to upset him or derange him from what he knows he needs to do, and that is he's in his backfield kicking this ball that he's kicked a million times, pretending that he's Mick O'Connell in a big match in the 1950s to win All-Ireland in Croke Park. That's what's going on in his head. There's something else going on that is not, I'm in Thurles, look at this, or there's Tommy Carr, it's really windy. It's like...
Yeah, it's a serenity, and the way he jogs away afterwards as well is not necessarily the sight of a man who's just levelled the game in incredible circumstances. Like, compare that to even a lot of his teammates, the fist pumping, and especially the Dubs, who are like this massive emotional thing. Maurice Fitz shows up, gets the ball, puts it over the bar, gets on with his day. And maybe there's something about the Mick O'Connell temperament within that as well, since you're making that comparison.
I'd love to know if Maurice was thinking anything at that moment. Was there just serenity in his head as he picked up that ball, as the wind was whistling by him? It's even the kicking technique, Ger, as you said. I actually really liked Darragh O'Caneda's style of striking a free. Darragh O'Caneda was very good. Mike Frank Russell, like Johnny Crowley, as you said, he had that wide just before Davy Byrne put the ball out for the sideline. But like that Kerry full forward line, they were really stylish footballers. And yeah, that Morris strike, he didn't just hoof it. It just floated so perfectly over the bar.
Well, we get to that moment that you've already brought us through, Tommy, the catch from Darragh O'Shea, Wayne McCarthy letting it go short, and it is literally game over after that. You can hear a little bit of Paddy O'Shea now. He was speaking to Darragh Maloney, on RT. I was going to say Darragh O'Shea in the immediate aftermath of the game.
Paddy O'Shea, what's your reaction after that? Your head must be spinning. Well, absolutely delighted that we salvaged the draw in the end. I thought the game was gone for a while. Luckily enough, when Dublin did get the goal, that we did have a few minutes left to pick off the last point, So from our point of view, I suppose, the game was there for us for long periods, but we always knew that Dublin were going to come at us. And, Dublin had to play for some period, and they played at the critical period as far as we were concerned towards the closing stage of the game.
Were you surprised it was so easy for you for so long?
Well, okay, it was that they showed great resilience and they showed great appetite, and they kept plugging in there, and they kept every time that we scored, they kept attacking back to score. But from our point of view, we're delighted to get the draw. We're still in the championship, and that's the main thing.
That kick at the end for Morris?
Great kick. He's very good at that. He's the right man at the right place. We introduced Morris in that period of the game, and luckily for us that we have that expertise in our ranks. It was a great score.
Paddy, thanks for your time. Thank you.
The sound there is one of the outstanding things. Maybe like noise-cancelling microphones hadn't quite come along in 2001, but I think really there was this real sense of joy from everyone, really. The Dublin players, the way they were applauding. We've got images that we can roll through here in terms of the aftermath of the game. We may as well just roll through them and just have a look at some of the scenes that we saw. We've got Kieran Whelan, we've got Tom Carr. It's just this emotional sort of applauding the Killiney end that we've got. There we have Kieran Whelan swapping a shirt and then applauding the Killiney end. We'll get to the most jarring in just a moment, but I just find it so weird that we have Declan Darcy and Jim Gavin and Jason Sherlock in this team, and this sort of stuff is going on, like Tom Carr with the two fists pumped up to the crowd, the massive emotional fist pumping after every score. It is just so removed from the Dublin team that Sherlock and Darcy and Jim Gavin were so deeply involved with taking to the next level. That emotion is something that they actually completely took out of the Dubs at certain points. There's a fan with Tom Carr in the aftermath of the game.
That's John Bailey, the county board chairman.
My apologies.
When you said there's a fan, I was thinking
it is John Bailey, sorry. It is, my apologies. I just went, I did Robbie Keane, unidentified fan there. I had one eye on it. Apologies. The secret man of the match. It's not Maurice Fitz, even though he's who everybody remembers because he kicked the ball once. I would give it to either Seamus Moynihan, Johnny Crowley, or Darragh O'Shea, to be quite honest with you. I thought he was magnificent. Vinnie Murphy and Desi, I thought, were decent as well, especially Vinnie when he came on.
Is secret man of the match supposed to be somebody who wasn't man of the match but actually deserved it? So I would...
Well, everybody's not who's not Maurice Fitzgerald, I think, in this case, can be made as secret man of the match.
I would say Darren Homan was actually the better midfielder on display for the Dubs, I thought. More effective over the course of the whole game. Like, you know, there was a few runs where Kieran Whelan pushed a couple of the Kerry defenders, but ultimately I would say Darragh O'Shea was the dominant midfielder in that battle over the course of the game. But I would say Homan actually was influential, agricultural in moments, and I think he was part of that welcoming committee for Maurice Fitz as well. You know.
Yeah, it was Patter Andrews, Darren Holman and Johnny McGee who were the welcoming committee. And actually, I had Holman down, I had Crowley down and Holman down for secret man of the match, but I give it to Holman for that gene up to the crowd after his goal. You know, it's the 69th minute.
Yeah,
you're only winning by a point.
Yeah,
I know.
It's like some of the trending stuff. Then we've kind of got to already. Like you mentioned the baggy jerseys, Tommy. You mentioned them. Buzz cuts were very much trending around this point. Like, you know, what's your man's name? Johnny Unitas in The Simpsons, when Abe Simpson's like, now there's a haircut I could set my watch to. All of the Dubs look like Johnny Unitas throughout this. A lot of the Kerry players do as well. They've all just taken a razor straight to it the day before game. That was what a championship haircut was.
Legendary American footballer Johnny Unitas.
2001. Yeah, I don't know Johnny Unitas in real life. I know him through The Simpsons. Okay, that was it. We've got the gloves. The gloves were very much trending.
What was the story with those Kerry gloves? What were they? I've never seen them before or since.
Are they Masita? Are they like the Masita ones, the yellow and black ones?
I don't know.
Mikasa.
Mikasa, sorry. Masita. What's Masita?
I don't know if they were, to be honest, but I've seen those green gloves. Darragh O'Shea pretty much wore them for the duration of his career.
Right. They were kind of big and thick. They looked like bog gloves, but it definitely worked. I thought the handling was excellent, considering that there was a shower of rain in the middle of it as well. I thought the football was much higher quality than I might have anticipated. I'm the opposite to you, Tommy. I think that I really enjoyed that part of it. I understand the point you're making about the technical efficiency of it.
I enjoyed it entertainment-wise. Yeah, entertainment-wise I enjoyed it, but it was just jarring, I suppose.
We have a minute left.
Yeah, just to basically take you very quickly then through what happened next. The replay, Johnny Crowley scores 2-2 in the replay. Kerry able to cope with the sending off of Tomas O'Shea, as we've already mentioned. He challenges Collie Moore and gets a straight red for it. Kerry again in control for a lot of the match. Two late Dublin goal chances in that replay as well cost them. Kerry win by 3 points. As we all know, though, later that season, Kerry get absolutely hockeyed by Meath, but eventually get back to win in All-Ireland 3 years later. It's still a bit of a gap before they do it. Dublin, as we all know, had to wait another 10 years and a whole culture change and a whole other slew of humbling defeats.
That's the end of Tommy Carr.
That is the end of Tommy Carr. And it is part of the chaos of the day that we have two great counties well before their 21st century peaks. Kerry kind of in between, Dublin well before the 21st century peaks. It was a game that was maybe low in quality at times, but it was brilliant and memorable and exciting, and it was definitely a good reason to bring back the Classic Game Club.
And GA now have put it on YouTube, so check it out there in full glorious Technicolor and top quality as well. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Give me the confidence to tackle the day ahead. That is this week's edition of the Classic Game Club.